Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to work over here on this big monster cane mill project. Been on the back burner a little bit. I've been waiting to get some parts back from sandblasting. It's been over there for weeks now, and yeah, just still waiting on them to get to it. But I have been kind of playing around with this big roller. I had previously done one side and really wasn't real happy with the results that I got. I had some issues going on. I got to working on the other side over here and figured a few things out. And I think we're going to go back and revisit and kind of do some more work on the side that we've already done. So let me kind of zoom in here. This is the side that I just got through doing, and I got much better results. So let me kind of just share some things that we figured out and found out in the process. So this is the other side, and you can see what I did over here was we actually stepped down in diameter a little bit to get down below the pitting and stuff that we had on the shaft. And let me just kind of tell you the story about how we got here. So I started out, I welded this side up like I did the other side, and again, struggled with my welder the whole way, just could not seem to get a good bead all the way around. And it really was frustrating because I had the trouble on the other side getting a good bead to weld down and lay down, and couldn't really do it. In the meantime, I did a bunch of welding with my welder, and I mean, it was welding flawlessly. In fact, Stan Zinkowski was here, and we actually did some fine tuning. I did have an issue with my feed roller had gotten dirty, and it was causing a little skipping sound. And I thought that might have been what was causing the problem here, but we came back over here, or I came back over here, and it was still pretty much kind of doing the same thing, just not really laying down a nice weld. I came in here and kind of turned that down and got down real close to the bottom, and it was just full of little areas that it just didn't weld and bond very well to the metal below. I said, I'm going to get out the TIG torch and kind of try to fill in some of these holes. And when I got the TIG torch out, I realized that my filler metal that I had laid down before, man, it was just TIGging like you would expect it to. But when I got to the base metal up underneath it, it's like I couldn't get it to melt. It just hardly would turn into a puddle. And I don't know what the issue was, why it was doing that, but for whatever reason, this base metal in here is just being really, really difficult to work with. I don't know if this is just a alloy or something that's just, I'm not gonna say it's not weldable, but it just did not want to behave. So I ended up just going undersize on this. Like I said, I just went down below the depth of the pitting. I took about 1/8 of an inch off the diameter. This was originally 4 3/8 diameter. This is what down here, this is where the gear will come up on. And I took it down to 4 1/4 inches diameter. Not going to be a problem. This is going to be the bearing journal. This is what the bat bearings are going to ride on. The gear will still have to fit up over the larger diameter. This is going to be a little slightly smaller diameter. So that is my solution that I came up with. And I think what I'm going to do now is flip this back around. And the other side, I had a lot of little voids and stuff in there. It actually turned out pretty decent after a lot of massaging and working with it, but I think I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to take it down to the same diameter, so I have the same diameter on both sides and have good material on there. Now down here on the end where the bearing or where the gear kind of goes up on, I just barely fuzzed this with the cutter. I mean, I might have taken a thou off, and then I came in here with a belt sander and polished it, and it is cleaned up a lot. I think that gear will hopefully go on a lot easier than what came off. And I noticed when I was turning this that right in here on the keyway, it actually removed a lot of metal right there. It was a lot larger diameter right there, which may have been why we were having such a problem with that key. It should be a nice uniform size now, and that key, shaft or that gear rather should go up on there much easier. It may be a thou or two undersized, but it's not going to be a problem at all. But don't know why, but welding this shaft just does not want to work, and I'm not going to try to fight it anymore. We're just going to go undersized with the journals. Like I said, 1/8 of an inch reduction in diameter is not going to have any effect from the functionality standpoint, and we're going to get a much nicer finish on there. But I want both sides to be the same. So again, we're going to flip it around, and we're going to take this down a little bit farther in diameter. All right, using the jib crane, I'm just gonna pick up on this, get the pressure off of it. I'm gonna release the live center down here on the end. All right, it is supported now without anything holding that end up. And we need to loosen up this end. I had put some shims in here. I need to take these shims out as I loosen it up. We'll need those again in a bit. All right. All right, got that shim out. Now, should be able to pull this out and carefully flip it around and rechuck it up. See here. I'm going to put this shim back up underneath the bottom and put one here on the top. And I did not, when I took this out, I did not move the bottom and the back side, so hoping that we're going to be close to being where we need to be on those. And I'm going to get my live center down here back in. All right, and now I just need to get my dial indicator over here on this, get the straps off, and make sure that we're running true on this end, get it fine adjusted on the forge off chuck, and we'll be ready to start working on the other end. Let me get these straps out of here. All right, we've got this dialed in on the forge jaw chuck. I'm going back in basically the same place as we were before. I just loosened two of the jaws and then tightened them right back up, put the same spacers back in. I only had about 10 thousandths that I had to kind of tune out of this, and we got it running within about 2 thousandths right now, which is about as good as I seem to be able to get it. So that is going to be good enough. And we are ready now to go to work on the other side. Okay, this side over here is the one that was kind of pitted up a little bit from the welding. Doesn't look terrible, but I think we're just going to go ahead and clean it on up. One thing I'll note too is that when we were doing this before, see these little ridges in here? I was getting those in and I could not figure out what the heck was going on. Why those were showing up in there and kind of had a pattern in here. I thought it was my drum was out of balance, which I know it is a little bit out of balance. I mean, you can tell that just by spinning it, that this thing is not balanced real high, and at the higher speeds, I was thinking we were getting a little bit of rotation in there. Turns out what the problem was the live center that I was using was an older live center. It was a little bit beefier the reason I wanted to use it, but the bearing in that live center was giving me some trouble, and that appears to be what was causing these little lines to be left in there. When I was getting the same thing over on the other side, I changed out live centers to a different live center, and it went away. So I'm real happy to do that. I'm going to be kind of stuck with it up on this end. This is not a big deal here though, because this is the side that the gear is going to be rolling up on. I just kind of fuzz this a little bit down here to make it a little bit smaller diameter, to make it easier for that gear to go up on there. Just took a couple of thousandths off is all. Down here, though, is the bearing journal. This is going to be a lot more critical. So hopefully when we get this turned out, we won't have any of that artifact of that live center in there anymore. So let's get in here and see if we can get this turned down. Got it about 1/8 of an inch of the diameter to take off and get a nice smooth journal for that bearing to go on. All right, we got the lathes fired up. I'm going to come in here, touch off on this side, and I'm just going to take a pretty light pass this first pass through there. And we'll start cutting that out. Got about 125 thousandths to take out altogether. We've been turning away over here, and we got down below that welded layer. It's turning a lot better once I got down up underneath all that weld. I think I got about 10 more thousandths after this pass to be at the final diameter, and it's turning pretty nice. I think just from where we welded it, we have a little bit different hardness in there. You kind of see those streaks, but it feels pretty smooth once we get it out there. I think once we polish it a little bit, it'll look a lot better. But we are getting close to final diameter here. We'll bring you guys back here in a minute. But it's turning out nice. We've got down below all the pitting and everything that was in there from the weld previously. And I'm much happier with the results here. I believe that this is our final pass. We'll measure when we get through cutting here, but just making about a 3/1000ths cut through here to get us to our final diameter, which is 4 1/4 inches. So looking good so far. Let's see how it turns out. All right, let's see where we ended up at here. I got my micrometer in. Shooting for 4 1/4 inches, and I got about 1 or 2 thou still oversized. So I think I'm going to do is just polish this off. I've got a little belt sander that goes on the grinder that I'm just going to come over here and kind of lightly hit that and see if we can knock it down just a tad. All right, here we go. Doesn't need much. After a little bit of belt sand in there, that little bit of polishing, that really looks a lot better, and that's good. We're measuring about a thou undersize, which will be just fine for this. Yeah, it's pretty uniform. I am happy with that. That looks much better than what we had before. Now up here again, this is just where that gear is going to go on. So I just, like I said, I had previously kind of just turned at least a little bit off of that because it was such a press fit getting it on. I don't really want to mess with that anymore, but I think that'll be fine. It's just going to be holding that gear in place. But much happier with the results here. That bearing journal there is going to work out just great. I wish that I had turned this in without that bad live center in there. That's where that little inconsistency is coming from, but that's dipping down below. We've still got plenty of surface area there for that gear to make contact with, so I think we're going to be fine. All right, we are ready once again to pull this out of here. I think we're done with our turning on this now, so let me get some weight on it. I'm going to remove my center down here. And I've seen this drop down. What I want to do is just raise it up until all right, so I got it about center of the center. The center is out of the way though. Go ahead and pull that completely out of the way. Get our carriage back as far as it'll go. And go ahead and loosen up this end from the 4-jaw chuck. Again, pulling my shims out. All right, shims are falling out here. And I'm going to kind of go back and come out with it. Bring it to me. And I got a pallet here. I'm going to drop it down and set it on. All right. Got that out. All right, I think we got this drum pretty much done. I still need to kind of clean it up a little bit, the cast iron part, but we'll worry about that in a bit. I got the other rollers. These are the smaller rollers, and these need to be cleaned up. So I've got them over here on the forklift on my skid steer, and I'm just going to take the pressure washer, try to wash them off, and I may get out my wet sandblaster attachment, and really just worried about the roll more than anything else, but get those cleaned up as well. So let's see how this goes. We'll start with pressure washing, and if I think I need to get the sandblaster out, we'll do that as well. Well, of course, now it's going to start raining, so I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I'm going to go ahead and get it back on the pallet and get the other one picked up and put on there and get it cleaned up too. Well, we got them cleaned up anyway. These things were just nasty. They were covered in mud and everything else. I may not have all the rust off of them, but most of this is going to be getting machine work anyway, except for the rollers themselves, and we'll probably just clean those up with a wire wheel. I think it'll be fine. I see, now that these things are cleaned up, where they've been repaired. We got some really bad pitting down here on some of the rollers that we're going to probably have to turn out. But nothing I don't think we can take care of. Let's see what we need to do next on these things. Probably, as much as I hate to do it, probably need to get those gears off the end, which means we're going to probably have to break out the press and do that. Let's see if we can get this roller up on its end and see what it's going to take to get that gear pressed off. All right. Well, it's been a couple of days since I've had a chance to work on this, and in the meantime, if you look behind me, you'll see that the cane mill parts have come back from the sandblaster. We'll go over that a little bit later on in probably another video, but I do have my castings back. We sent those off, had them sandblasted, and they went ahead and just primed them with some red primer. So they're ready to continue working on that. We need to get this project back on the ball again, and get these gears pressed off of here. Once again, I'm set up over here with my little portable hydraulic press. I will say that I've done some modifications to this thing again. After I used it the last time, we put a lot of stress in this thing, and the top and the rods kind of got bent a little bit up. I had to also do a little changes to some spacers in here to make it work right. I've beefed this thing up. I've reinforced it. I got some pieces across the top that hopefully will add a little bit of strength to it. Got a 100-ton jack in here, so this thing's really putting some pressure on there, but hopefully this will hold up a little bit better. And anyway, I like what I got now a little bit better than what we had originally. Like I said, hopefully this will hold up. So we're going to crank up. I've got my power pack. This is the power pack that goes on my hydraulic press. Last time I was using a different one. This one here actually pumps a little bit faster. So I got a gauge on this one as well, so I can keep track how much pressure I've got. This is a 10,000 PSI gauge. This is a 100-ton jack, so it's basically for every 1,000 pounds on here is 10 tons. So if I'm reading 4,000 pounds, that's 40 tons over here. So it is somewhat calibrated. All right, let's fire up and see what we can do. See if we can press this thing apart. All right, I think we are ready to try to press this apart. I'm gonna watch my gauge over here and hope everything comes apart like it should. So we're gonna go ahead and start loading it up. For about almost 2,000 pounds on the, it should be 20 tons, something this gauge. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, it's pulling that gear right up. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, that gear's coming off no problem. I need to lift this up so it has some room to come out the bottom. I got to stop there because the bottom of this plate's about to hit that key. So we're going to have to put a little spacer up underneath the bottom. Let me go ahead and release that. Got it. I'm going to release my pressure and we'll get this taken apart. And I got the other piece to do as well. Same process. Probably not going to show that one, but we got to get that other one off as well. All right. Well, we have the gears pressed off of both of these rollers. Wasn't too bad of a job, just a lot of heavy lifting. Thank goodness for the gantry crane and the hydraulic press. I don't think I ever got over 20 tons. on pressing any of these off. So these actually came off much easier than the big gear did on the bigger roller. But we got them off, and these are now ready to go over to the big lathe and get these journals turned. We need to get these journals down here cleaned up. I'm just going to turn them down to whatever size I need to get them to clean up. We've got some pretty significant pitting in this roller, and I think there's actually some pitting on all of them, but that's probably the worst one right there. And I'm going to just take it down to whatever size cleans it up. I'm not even going to try to weld these up. That turned into a fiasco on the other roller. So we're just going to turn them down like we did, and we've still got plenty of meat there to provide bearing surface, no problem at all. So as soon as I get my lathe, I got another job running on it right now, but as soon as I get it finished up, we'll get back on these rollers and I get these ready to go, and then we'll be ready to start pretty soon putting this mill back together. We got some Babbitt bearings to pour, and there's a little bit of work we got to do to the main castings and stuff before we can start putting it back together. In fact, let me go show you that. So we got our castings back from the sandblaster. I took these down to a professional sandblasting place that I've worked with several times in the past, and they sandblasted pretty much everything, and they just put a red primer on it. This primer just really kind of helped protect it, keep it from rusting before I can get some paint on it. And the primer will help with the paint as well. Back behind it here, got some more parts. Let me show you those. So some more of the parts and pieces, again, sandblasted and primed. We've got some work we got to do on a few of these, but this is just mainly the pieces that I'm going to be needing first off. And there are more parts still that are up in a storage building that are primarily the gears, the big gears and pulleys and stuff like that. That I'm not going to need for a little while, so I just put those in storage for the time being, but they are ready to go as well. But anyway, all this stuff is back. We've been waiting on this before we could really proceed with a lot of stuff, so glad to have it back in the shop. So one thing I do want to note is you know, I talked about this before, this had been repaired previously. This mill had seen a pretty bad crash at some point in time, and it actually had broken into multiple pieces. There's actually a couple of pieces that they didn't even put back on here. They're just missing, not anything critical, but it did get a pretty good whop at one point in time. And the previous person that did this repair, they came in and they did that with a nickel welding rod. And as I've talked about many times, guys, I'm not a big fan of nickel welding cast iron. I know a lot of people swear by it, but this is the problem that I see all the time with it. Right along this transition line where you go from the nickel to the cast iron, it'll crack back out, it'll crack back out, it cracked. I've got cracks all through this right along those transition lines. This crack here is even spread from what it was originally. And when we got it sandblasted, it became a lot more obvious of some of these problems in here. So before I do any paint or anything on this, I am going to take the time to clean this up, V that stuff out, and I'm going to braze it. And brazing will be fine to braze between the cast iron and the nickel. It'll stick just fine. It's a dissimilar material, so it'll work just fine. But we're going to try to go in here and clean some of this up. Again, I'm not a big fan of nickel welding. Brazing has just done much better for me over the years, and that's what I pretty much stick with now. We're going to have to go in here and fix some of this mess. And this is by far the ugliest weld on here. I may even try to grind that out, maybe put a little Bondo on there just to make it look a little bit nicer. I'm not too worried about it in every place, but that just bothers me. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to try to fix every little spot, but that's a pretty obvious area. We may try to see if we can do something to make it look a little bit nicer. It wasn't even welded back together where it was even in a couple of places. Right here, you know, it's not even even. So anyway, it is what it is. We'll make it work, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit better at the same time. Well, there we go, an update on the cane mill. And like I said, now that we've got some stuff back in the shop, we can kind of really get back onto this project and try to get this one moving forward. I will also say that the John Deere mill that I took apart a couple of weeks ago now, When I went to pick this up from the sandblaster, I carried that down there to the sandblaster. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to sandblast it all, go ahead and prime it all, and get it ready. So I don't know how long that'll take. This took about 5 weeks. I think those guys are really behind right now. So probably won't be ready for the John Deere mill when they get it ready, get it back. So it's going to take me a while to get all this stuff done, particularly with my big road trip coming up. Then we'll be out of the shop for a couple of weeks, but we're going to get her done. So there you go. Guys, with that, that's going to be a wrap for right now on this one, on this cane mill project. We'll be back on this project coming up soon. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe. Please do. It really helps out a lot. Also, hit that bell icon up there to get notifications when new videos are posted. Leave a comment down below. That really helps out, helps feed the algorithms. And hit that like button if you liked what you saw. And as always, a big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal, etc. Really helps me to be able to take the time to shoot these videos, do the editing and everything else. It takes a lot of time and effort to do this YouTube stuff, guys. I could be just out here working in the shop, but I like sharing with you guys. And if you want to help out a little bit financially, it will really make a difference for me. So please consider that. There's links on how to do that down in the description below. And with that, we are going to get out of here. We're going to sign off. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.